continue with the Friday edition of News and Views this morning. And this is quite interesting. The next discussion that we are having, and we're having this discussion with Dr. Jared Sachs. And he's written an opinion piece talking about how Zionism's logic is actually driving violence, including a strike on a synagogue in Iran. And I think many of us will recall that strike that had taken place, and the this had taken place in Tehran as well. It's taken place in the middle of a Jewish holiday of Passover, and once again, according to Jared Sachs, this attack reveals to a shocking degree Zionism's willingness to treat Jewish life as disposable in the service of its ideological project. Dr. Jared Sachs, activist, right, and legal advocate, and also with the South African Jews for a Free Palestine. Good morning to you, Jared, and thank you. We do appreciate your time.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yes, obviously, this piece that you have written, this opinion piece, speaks just so much, and there's just so much one can actually take away and unpack in terms of, what the Zionism project is all about, and their logic and their thinking behind, what they have been doing. And this violence, obviously, a strike on a synagogue means absolutely nothing, because what you are saying is this is ideological, and this has nothing to do with a Jewish life or caring about Jewish life in general.
Yes, to a certain extent, it has nothing to do with Jewish life and caring about Jewish life. But what I'm also arguing, I think, is that um, it's an attack on Jewish life. It's an attempt to turn diversity and difference in Jewish life into something homogenous and colonized. The colonial process in much of the world was about destroying local cultures, about homogenizing people into one type of person. Um, the French in their colonization tried to make all types of people, including Black people, more French, right? I think Zionism does the same thing to Jews.
Yes. Now, Jared, also, you speak about an existential threat as far as Jews are concerned, and how this threat has actually been used to manipulate the narrative, to manipulate world opinion, and also in terms of, its actions, or justifying the Zionist entities' actions, as providing safety, security for Jews right across the entire world.
Yeah, I mean, this is the claim of Zionism. The claim is that it provides safety for Jews. It's Israel is supposed to make Jews safer, um, mostly by forcing all Jews to come to Israel and to conform to Israeli culture and to become Israeli. Um, but what it actually does is actually makes Jews more unsafe, because Israel is a fascist colonial project, and it makes alliance with other fascists. It makes alliances with people like Donald Trump, with Bolsonaro in Brazil, and with other types of hateful ideologues. And these hateful ideologues hate Black people. They hate um, Muslims, and they hate Jewish people too. Um, they only like Jewish people if they are in their place, and their place is outside of Europe and outside of white areas. Um, and so they're supposed to all go to Israel so they can have their own state where they can be kept and limited in that kind of space.
Jared, you make a statement where you speak about Hasbara, and talking about Israel as the
Mm.
only guarantor of Jewish safety. And without it, doomed to repeat what had taken place during the Holocaust, and the actions of the Nazis at this point in time. Let's just try and unpack a lot more in terms of this particular statement that has been made in this article?
Mm. Well, Hasbara, for those who don't know, Hasbara is a Hebrew word for explanation. Um, and so this is the propaganda arm of the Israeli state. And it influences other propaganda arms and other media forms of media. Um, and if we want to understand what gives Israel its intellectual, or not intellectual, but um, propaganda power, you have to understand what Hasbara is and what it does and how it operates. And so it's useful to think through the term, because um, Hasbara keeps pushing certain claims, that Jews are under threat, that there are anti-Semites all over the world who want to kill all Jews, and that Jews need to become, um, you know, counter-fascist to challenge that kind of threat.
Yes, but Jared, also, I think the fact that a Jewish synagogue was actually bombed in Tehran, and when one looks at some of the justification over a period of time, has got some sort of religious connotations. The talk of a temple mount, we've seen Christian Zionists as well, using the Bible and biblical justification for Jews, for the Zionist ideology as well. So we're talking about Christian Zionists, but yeah, on the one hand, we know what is taking place in Aqsa. We know what is taking place over Easter as far as the church is concerned as well, in Jerusalem as well. So, and now that we have a synagogue that have actually been bombed as well, and trying to provide religious justification in this context tells us one thing, that religion is secondary. They don't care about religion. And this is an ideology, as you mentioned, based on ethno supremacism, racialism, and there's just so much more. And this is the reason why we see so much brutality, even in the case of the genocide that had taken place in Gaza as well. And just generally, when one looks at the greater Israel project, and they will go to any length to do irrespective of who it is, whether it is Jews, whether it's Muslims, whether it is Christians as well.
Yes, absolutely. There is a history of Zionists attacking Jewish institutions. In much of the Arab world, there were kind of false flag events in the 50s and 60s, where um, you know agents of the Israeli state would um, attack a Jewish institution like a synagogue, or have a bomb scare at a synagogue in order to scare the Jewish community in, like, let's say, Iraq, in order to come to Israel, where they would be safe. That was the kind of claim. That was kind of what was done back then in order to kind of justify people moving to Israel. Um, and so, in that context, this is not anything new. I'm not saying that Israel bombed the synagogue on purpose. I don't think that they targeted the synagogue, because that is quite a bit crass to do that quite openly. I think what they did was they um, they kind of indiscriminately bombed, people in Iran, and it just happened to hit a synagogue because there are a lot of Jews in Iran. So, but what this shows is how Zionism devalues certain um, Jewish life that is different, Jewish life that doesn't follow um, the precepts of Zionism. And the Iranian Jewish community is, if not explicitly anti-Zionist, implicitly anti-Zionist by refusing to leave Iran, which is seen as an anti-Semitic country, to move to Israel.
Jared, just looking at it personally, from your personal, and I'm sure that there are many other people that are affected in terms of, feeling intimidated or being labeled as a self-hating for standing up to this Zionist ideology as a Jewish person.
Um, well, most of us who do stand up and who speak loudly and are very public about it, we do get attacked by Zionists, and we get labeled things and we get threatened. Um, but I myself, I don't feel really threatened. I don't feel alone. I feel like I have a strong, loving community of anti-Zionists who are both Jewish and non-Jewish, and in that kind of space, I feel that um, one, can feel very confident and not feel the kind of fear that they want you to feel.
Well, having said that, and obviously you also make reference to this in your article, where you speak about Israel repeatedly demonstrating a willingness to treat Jewish life as disposable in service of its ideological project.
Yes, I mean, as I mentioned, it devalues Jewish life. There becomes hierarchies of Jewish life. At the top are the white European Zionist Jews, right? Lower down are Arab Jews. Even lower down are Ethiopian Jews, and the lowest of the low are the Jews who refuse to support Zionism, right? And that hierarchy is a form of devaluing of Jewish life, but also of colonizing Jewish life, of homogenizing Jewish life, and making it a single thing that is no longer a kind of diverse collection of different ethnicities and different cultures from all over the world.
Just finally, Jared, we've seen with the genocide that has been unfolding in Gaza and also what has been taking place now with the attack on Iran and also in South Lebanon as well. A lot has actually come out in the open, a lot has been exposed. And for Jewish people right across the entire world, and I'm sure there are quite many in Israel as well, that obviously disagree with what Netanyahu is doing, the Greater Israel, the Zionist project as well. Do you see these perceptions starting to actually change across the world, particularly when it comes to Jewish people and how differently they're starting to see Israel and also looking at their own future, as far as Israel and the Jewish homeland?
You're talking about Jews all over the world. Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think, the majority of Jewish institutions by far are still Zionist. And the majority of Jews are still Zionist, even if they don't use the term Zionist to describe themselves. Um, However, there is a real shift in various Jewish communities, especially in the U.S., a little bit less so in South Africa, where um, many Jews are starting to reject the foundation of Zionism, reject the idea that Jews need a state to be safe, but also reject the idea that Jews deserve a state of their own, where they can be privileged over other people. Um, and I think that rejection, um, is important because it's the foundation for a type of politics that will challenge the fascism within our communities and challenge the kinds of forms of oppression that we see all over the world. So, just like you saw a small number of white people who opposed apartheid in South Africa, and there were white people all over the world who protested against apartheid in South Africa. You're starting to see that amongst Jews, with regards to Israel. It's not where it should be. You know, it's very, very small number, but it's starting to get somewhere. And hopefully, you know, this will keep going, and it will help bring down the Israeli regime in the end.
Well, Jared, thank you very much for that, and also for taking time out with us at Salam Media this morning for unpacking the opinion piece that you had written, and we wish you all the best. Please take care.
No problem. Thanks for having me. Take care as well.
Dr. Jared Sachs, activist, writer, and legal advocate, also a member of South African Jews for a Free Palestine, with us this morning. A quick break. We come back. It's time for Juma Inspirations.
Africa Muslim Agency's Golf Day on the 19th of April, literally a few days away. We are here ready to welcome you to have a day of fun-filled activities together with our sponsors, well-wishers, all for the good cause of education. Come through to the Royal Johannesburg Golf Course and participate in this amazing initiative.